So, 10 things you should probably know about Japan before you come and live here. So, 1. Hobbies. If you don't have a hobby, get one. At least you're going to come to Japan anyways, because the reason why I say get a hobby in Japan is that if you're just purely working and you don't have time to, if you don't have a hobby, it really makes it difficult to infiltrate the society, Japanese society. I'm making friends here. Now, because of the group mentality thinking here in Japan, it's very hard to penetrate into a group. You will most likely, if you do meet people, you'll notice after a certain amount of time that you will actually only hang with them one on one. Like, they won't invite you out to their group. It's not like in Western culture where we're very much, oh yeah, I've got this friend. Do you mind if he joins? Yeah, no problem. He'll come along. It's definitely not like that here in Japan. You need to basically know a person for a very long time before they start to feel comfortable. And you might with one friend at first, and then another friend, and slowly it goes more and more and more. But that does take a lot of time. Now, to find an easy way in, it is, as I said before, get a hobby, because that way you have a similar interest and you're already into the group. In my case, as a dancer, I do dance classes here. It's an instant connection where people will see your dance and they can see your hard work ethic in Japan, please. It will help a lot in that case for you to penetrate your groups, and actually you already have the similarities in the sense of your interests, and that honestly will help you a lot. Especially with your psyche, your mentality here. It can be really rough here, especially if you don't know anyone here. It is really rough, so being able to make friends, and while you may initially have the language barrier, unless if you don't speak fluent Japanese, it will help you carry on through, and eventually it will build up your confidence, and you will feel more integrated into the society here. Now, this does bring me on to number 2, which is that this country is not a cheap country to live in. Especially doing a hobby. Now, while you should do a hobby, hobbies here aren't necessarily cheap. I'm an eikaiwa teacher. Now, while I cannot say which company I do work for, I know that prices do range for not just my eikaiwa, but many other eikaiwas from like 3,000 to 7,000 yen per class. Now, that is basically like between 40 to $85 roughly a class, which is not cheap for a language class when you compare it to other countries, which are a lot more affordable. And on top of that too, my dance classes, while I take the beginner intermediate style classes, which is roughly about 2,000 yen, I do know some classes are 3,000 yen each, and it's not very, very cheap. But the talent in this country is amazing. It's crazy. It's so inspirational. But if you are going to come to the country, do save as much as you possibly can, because it can be quite difficult to pursue what you really like here. Gym here is also expensive. Very expensive here. But nevertheless, let's move on to number 3, which is food. Food. Now, most people when they first come to Japan, they rave on about the konbini, which is the convenience store. One of the reasons for this is just the amount of food you get, and when you first come here, in many countries we don't have that. You come to Japan and you're just like, wow, like, oh my gosh, there's so much food. Oh my god, like, the food, I want to try everything. Let me guarantee you that after 3 months of living here, you get over it and you realize it actually isn't the most healthiest thing here, which means that obviously you want to be cooking for yourself, or you want to be also go to restaurants. Apart from just Japanese food, there's not really any other kind of food here apart from very Japanese style Italian food, which, I mean, if you come from a city like mine, like in Melbourne, where we have a lot of Italians living there, where the Italian food is actually quite, is abundant of different flavors, to come to Japan where it's a little bit weak from my palate. It can be quite restricting. Supermarkets here aren't cheap either, and they come really, it's like a lot of the products, they come in really quite small sizes, so it's hard to buy in bulk and make it last and stretch it out. So you do feel like you're spending more money at the supermarket more and more and more, because there's just so much to buy, because it's just too little. The quantity of the products is just not enough. So it makes it a little bit difficult to spend. Like, for example, like bread in this country is, I get a half a loaf, the same amount I would pay in Australia, I would get a full loaf. Um, Now again, this is probably because Japan does import a lot of things from other countries. That makes it expensive, and ultimately you kind of rely on convenience store food to get you by, and it's not the most healthiest thing. You can find healthy stuff inside there, but it does get very repetitive, and you start to realize, especially when you come from a Western country where we have a multitude of different flavors, to come to Japan where it's very restrictive in what flavors there are, it can be a little bit tiresome. So be warned, try to learn to cook for yourself so you can make the food that you really love, and try to find your own groceries and supermarkets here in Japan that do sell the ingredients that you do like, because if you can find that and know to cook, it will enrich your experience, and it's a great way to show off to Japanese people and your skills, and it can make great dinner parties in that case. Now we're on to number 4, dialects. That's right, dialects. Now, when you learn Japanese in high school, you learn the Tokyo standard, and you always, with any language you learn, you usually learn the capital city's dialect or standard. Now, obviously, when you get to the country, there's a lot of slang and there's colloquial language. Now, living in Osaka, there is a thing called Osaka Ben or Kansai Ben. Basically, very, very, very different. So, people here in Osaka do speak quite quickly, and they do use quite a different set of words, and a lot of the endings of their words, they do change a little bit. Not everyone can still understand Tokyo Ben, but Tokyo dialect, but it's also quite important too that if you get a chance to do research, so beforehand, and if you can do study as much of the language as you can, because it helps with integration so much. Now, kanji is Japanese characters, the Chinese characters. It is quite difficult, very difficult, and even Japanese people have difficulties with it themselves. But try your best to learn it, because ultimately, trying to fill out like forms in this country, if you don't know, if you're not fluent in Japanese, it's an absolute nightmare because you just read something and you just have no clue what it is, because you're looking and you're like, what is this kanji? And I must say, a great app you can use is Yomiwa, which is you can actually draw in the kanji or take a photo of the kanji and it can translate it for you, which has saved me a couple of times. So really you should try that one out there. So research as much of the language you can, or the dialects a lot if you know where you're going to go. It might save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. Now, number 5 is fashion. Now, one of my friends who's part Japanese, he did say to me recently that the thing with Japan is that for all the crazy Japanese fashion that we see, ultimately it boils down to making effort. Japanese people appreciate if you make effort wherever you go, no matter how strange it looks. It's effort. If they see that you haven't made effort, it's a little bit of an offense. It's not a big thing, but maybe for me, because I do quite like the fashion in Japan, I think it's very important to dress up, because it does create a first impression, and it does show that you take care of yourself as well, and you want to be a confident person in this country, in any country really, but it does go a long way. The fashion here will be really crazy. It can be quite expensive, but there are definitely some really good finds. I personally love going to Spins. It's in a lot of malls, it's in a lot of shopping streets. Really good quality clothing. I find the quality is great, it lasts, and it's really affordable. And it's very modern, and the stock changes quite often, so you can always get new things. There's always a new surprise. So definitely that's a really great place to go. Ouigo, and also secondhand stores in Japan are absolutely amazing. You can get some really unique and yet very modern type styles in the secondhand clothing store. Even get some interesting brand names. I was seeing Kenzo stuff in the secondhand stores. It's actually really amazing. It just goes to show that how much pride Japanese people have in what they wear, and it's something that I think you should really try, because it's a great thing to do here. Now, number 6, let's go to the business topic, because hierarchical management in Japan, everyone says it. Everyone says it when they first come here. The hours here are really long, but it's also the management. Kind of goes a long way around. Now, to a Westerner, it doesn't feel the most efficient, and also this is my perspective, so I'm not saying about this is all Japanese people, this is all Korean people, that, but my experience in Korea, for example, from what I've just gathered, Koreans tend to work really a little more efficiently, but there is that hierarchy law, and you get that also in Japan, but to a stronger degree, where if you want to take your leave, if you want to take a day off, or organize a day off, you kind of have to go through your manager, which goes to their manager, goes to their manager, then goes to the boss, and it goes a long way around when really you could cut the corner and just get to the straight person. But because of the honorifics in this, not through the language, but just because in this culture you do have to go the long way around, which it can be a little bit daunting at first, and for someone like me, it's a little bit off-putting because I like to get to the point. Um, it'll also mean that when you first start a role, you are kind of you're being babysitted, which is good because in that sense, like you do learn everything properly, and they're quite nice to you, especially if you're a foreigner. You do get that foreigner treatment, which I guess works as a privilege for us. But at the same time, it can be a little bit exhausting and tiring. But ultimately, I mean, you can't you can't change that. That is their culture, and you will work in this country, and you will have issues in terms of like you will see things and be thinking like, oh, there is such easy way to do this. There's this way to do it, and you can go to like almost a nationwide aspect of it. But ultimately, this is it's for Japan to figure out. It's for the Japanese people to figure out. You are at the end of the day the foreigner and the outsider. Have your opinions, but know when to say them. And all is good with well, but you will need to be able to work for the system. So if you are coming to the country, try to be as fit as you can, because come to the country fit because you will need to, and be warned that you may not get as much sleep as you think you do. So be aware of that. So if your body is a bit frail, it may not be the best idea for you to work in Japan. Now, the seventh one I want to talk about is trains. Now, trains in the country are amazing. There's just an abundance of them, and they're everywhere, but they're bloody expensive. Now, as I said before, things in this country are expensive, but trains is expensive on its own because this network is so big and it's everywhere, and it really creates up in you. So ultimately, you can. I mean, I live next to 2 train lines, and I'm in the suburbs. So this goes to show that it's really expensive. Now, thankfully, my company pays for my ticket to work and back home, but outside of that, obviously, I foot the bill with everything else. So it is very important that you do have a lot of money left over. In a day, I can almost spend up to like $20, $25 just for like one day for like getting around, because it is actually that expensive. So going to all these multiple places, you do feel inclined to walk. And unfortunately, this country in the summertime is really hot, and it's 84 something percent humidity. It's in the 30s, over 30 degrees. It's exhausting, and for someone like me coming from Australia, Melbourne, where it's more dry heat, it's such a shock to the system, and it is so important that you do keep hydrated. Because working in this condition when you're not used to it is even more exhausting, because as Japan is a very energy-saving society, they tend to not put the aircon on, so until the last minute, so you're kind of just sweating there and dying in the classroom or dying at your workplace. So make sure you have a lot of water, and at the same time, be aware that getting around here in Japan might mean either a really expensive train ticket or you dying in the heat. So pick what you will. And again, I think this comes back to just, if you can, be really fit. Now, speaking of being fit, I was saying before about the work hours, so this is number 7. Work hours in this country are long. Now, for most foreigners, we do get a lot of short hours, and that is a privilege again of being a foreigner, because a lot of Japanese people assume that because we are foreigner, we can't handle those hours. It is incredible that I see some of my students, especially the salarymen that I have as students, they will work from 8 a.m. to sometimes 8 p.m., 9 p.m., almost every day, and sometimes they work 6 days a week. It is insane, but also they're living in that society. That's their norm. so they're used to it. Obviously, a lot of them do end up overworked. This is probably one of the contributing factors to the high suicide rate in Japan. But again, that is an issue that I think Japan has to figure out itself, and through their ideas and their own culture, that's ultimately for Japanese people to decide. But because you will be working in the system like that, you will be expected to work longer hours than maybe you're used to. Now, especially if you come from Australia, where our hours are a lot shorter, be very aware of that. You won't get much sick leave. In fact, your sick leave and annual leave is combined. So, especially for us Aussies, this is a shock to the system because we've come from a country with so many privileges, and we come here. In fact, any country we go to, there's just a lot less privileges, and we are in for a big, big shock. Also, tax in this country are a lot higher than Australia. Not as high as Germany, but still pretty high. So, make sure you just save that extra bit of money, so you're not hustling around every moment. All right. So now, the next one, ninth one, I would say is, this is one of my pet peeves. I guess with a lot of tourists that come to Japan. Now we have a lot of weeaboos in this country. Now I'm not going to go to a topic of that because that's just another topic in itself. But the reality when people come here is that I think most people come here because of images of animes and crazy Japanese videos and game shows, that they think that Japanese people are actually really eccentric. Now, their language may at times sound quite eccentric, but Japanese people are actually not weird. Like, they're quite normal. They think the same thoughts that we do. Similar opinions that we do. Quite open-minded as well. Depending where you go. The same racist people, the same amazing people. Japanese people are not weird, they're just human beings, so don't come here with the thought that, they're gonna, serve the attitude that you just want to see, because if you're gonna come with that attitude, you're actually gonna be really disappointed. There'll definitely be different cultural aspects, but, ultimately, they're not defining factors in that, they're just who they are, and everyone is ultimately an individual. Now, last one is, this is one thing that's maybe a personal thing for me, but I find it really annoying, and there's this obsession with Italy and France in this country where you see a lot of clothes stores, they have a lot of French or Italian name, or there's a lot of Italian restaurants, a lot of French bakeries, a lot of the bakeries here will be using the French word boulangerie. So it's kind of bizarre because this is Asia, and yet it almost fetishizes Italy and France a little too much. And this is probably one of the reasons why Japanese people have the Paris syndrome, where they go into a traumatic mental state from going to Paris because they're so disappointed by what Paris is actually like. And also, you should never go to a country with too many expectations because that is actually quite unhealthy for you. But yeah, it's actually really off-putting because you do kind of walk around this country thinking, oh, where's something, oh, I want to get some food, really. I'm a bit sick of Japanese food. I live in this country for so long. I don't want Japanese food. I want something else. And then all you get is Italian food with no, Italian, spaghetti bolognese or carbonara or something like that. And there's, hardly any meat in it. You doesn't know, where's the, extra servings, the seasonings, chili flakes, or, olive oil, or, some dressing, or some parmesan cheese. I would love that as a side, but no, they don't do that. Instead you get very watery pasta, which doesn't really sit well with me. But that's for you to find out when you come over here, and maybe you might like it, like my friend does, because ultimately that is your palate. But it is one of those little strange things about this country that that I will probably never understand. And coming from back as Chinese Cambodian and not being able to eat a lot of good Southeast Asian food here, that's a bit difficult. But hey, that's what a good flight overseas is for. But I hope you like the video. There's many other things I've missed out in here. But, I just remember one. Tattoos. You can't go to the gym. Make sure you know about that. But hopefully you can talk about your experiences as well. Cheers.